but
Dean, we've lost your audio.
they can catch up to us during the introduction. Telestream, Softron Media Services, and Axle Video. Each of them will be presenting and providing a live demo of key products. In the interest of getting right to our content and demos, we're going to do introductions as we come to each product. Along the way, I'll also be referring to some related products from other vendors to give you a sense of what's possible in the marketplace. Let me pause and thank our friends from Telestream for hosting this event on behalf of a great group of solution providers. I'm really excited about what we're doing today. This sort of collaboration for a live event is rare in my experience, and the Mac is the unifying element here. We're all here because we're interested in or producing products for Mac-based workflows. Before we go any further, let's take just a second to review some housekeeping tips for the event. We've put up an overview on the anatomy of the On24 event window. I wanted to just give you a chance to take a look at the multiple application widgets you can use. If you have any questions during the webcast, you can click on the Q&A at the bottom and submit a question. We'll try to answer those during the webcast, but if a fuller answer is needed or we run out of time, it'll be answered later via email. We do capture all questions. You can also expand your slide area by clicking on the maximize icon on the top right area or by dragging the bottom right corner, as you might expect. If you have any technical difficulty, please click on the help widget. It has a question mark icon, kind of covers basic technical issues. And then we expect to make an on-demand version of this webcast available in a couple of days after the webcast, and that'll be accessible to be here with folks from Apple, from Telestream, from Softron Media Services, and from Axle Video. If you've not heard of some of those names before, we hope by the end of today you'll have a better idea of who we are. A quick word about my firm. Macprofessionals is based in Michigan. We're a women-owned company founded in January 2000, and our whole focus is delivering enterprise-class solutions on the Apple platform. We've been specializing in rich media and video production workflows on the Apple platform for about 15 years, really from the outset of digital video, which Apple was a pioneer in. While we're based in the Great Lakes state, we have engineers in multiple states, and our technical team works around the U.S. and in Canada to help design and install these sorts of solutions, so we work in the private and the public sector, wherever we're needed. As you consider your worship spaces as we go forward today, if you need assistance with product selection, with solution design, workflow, installation, that's what we do. We're also an authorized reseller partner to the other partners here, so Axle, Softron, and Telestream. This collaboration actually came together because we chose our favorite integration products really to highlight for the marketplace, and we felt they were perfectly suited for ministry production. So today's presentation is going to take a look at a collection of things that we hope will have something for everyone. In a moment, we're going to take a poll to get a sense of ministry size across today's attendees. We'll look at typical workflow and diagrams of how you can arrange a Mac-based solution, and we'll discuss tools on the hardware and software side. And then I'm going to pass the mic over for the real action, the live demos of the key tools. We have a big group with us today. Looks like we're at almost 200. So I'm hopeful that we have a great cross-section of folks from large and small ministries. Please take a moment in your window and take a look at the poll we've just put up, and if you have a second, select the button that most closely aligns with your ministry. We'll take a quick look at those results in a few minutes. Congregation size does not necessarily equate to the sophistication of the production environment. We've seen small ministries with very advanced tools and very skilled producers and editors, and large ministries who are just getting their feet wet. And while you do that, I'm going to charge ahead in the interest of keeping us on track. When we speak of media production in the ministry, we're thinking about these focus areas. When we ask ourselves, why should we care? Well, the folks who are interested in doing this are trying to reach more people, improving recruitment and retention of their members, making it possible to reach more congregants, especially those that can't attend in person, and offering something of real value to families in the form of special events. Ultimately, deriving more value from the work you've done on behalf of your congregations. It's important to note, and my feeling is this is one of the really important areas, is that special event production of weddings and baptisms, concerts even, can represent a new revenue stream for your ministry. In my church and in many others I speak to, the media folks are all volunteers. The tools we're going to look at today actually help make the work of volunteers more flexible, more efficient, and can help adapt to unexpected absences of key people by helping you collaborate better with other folks in your congregation. And Axel Video will be talking about how to easily reuse pre-recorded material. Before we go farther, I'm going to pause and introduce my friend and colleague from the Apple retail store world, Tim Kenham. As Tim will explain, this event has had its seed in a concept that Tim put together in the Michigan marketplace of Apple retail stores. Tim, take it away.
Thanks, Dean. Hello, everybody, and really thanks for joining us today. As Dean said, my name is Tim Kenham. I'm a business manager with Apple in Michigan. We have business teams all over the U.S. to help assist you guys all over the globe in every Apple retail location. And I'm just going to take a couple minutes to introduce you to Apple Business, and then I'm going to get it back over to Dean and the team for some really great demonstrations. So how did we get here today? Like Dean said, we did this event live in Apple retail throughout Michigan, and we received rave reviews along with a lot of questions about all the awesome content from applications to the devices that are powered by the Apple products. This is our first webinar of this size with so many great partners, so I again want to thank Telestream, Softron, Axle, and Macprofessionals for their time here today. We did a couple test runs to work out all the kinks we'll be handing off from partners around the country, and I'm really looking forward to showing you the possibilities you have out there combining Apple with some amazing business solutions. So we need technology for your business. There's really no better partner than the Apple business team. We can create personalized product solutions that are just specifically for your business and backed by our world-class support. You'll discover flexible ways to buy. We even have leasing solutions and financing options. And we'll help you get the most from your products, like train your staff or even help find technical expertise. From Mac to iPhone to iPad, the Apple Watch, they're all powerful business tools that empower your teams and really help transform workflows. You can even run some of the things we're going to be talking about today right from your iPad or your iPhone. Many of you joining today may have attended the events in Michigan, and we've been putting on these Mac in the Ministry events for a number of years now. The solutions presented have grown and evolved with your ministry needs, actually. It started with a lot of you just wanting to get into the production, and now it's, oh my gosh, how do I manage all these files? How do I manage all this media? And even though I can't see any of you right now, I know some of you are nodding your heads to that one. But the goal is to bring you Apple business solutions. So whether you're just getting started, like Dean said, or you need to add to an already robust system, Apple Business is here to help. It's just what we do. So people go into business or maybe even start a business because of a passion around an idea, a hobby, a lifestyle, or a goal. From medical to manufacturing to ministry, the reason Apple stores as well as Apple Business exist is to really help people and business customers like yourself get the most out of their passion. So again, thanks for joining, and I'm going to get it back over to Dean and the team now.
Thanks very much, Tim. Let's take a second to take a look at the poll results. If you look in your window, Deborah Lee from Telestream is showing us the results from the poll from a few moments ago. This is sort of what I expected. It's been our experience in the live presentations of these that we've done in the Michigan retail stores, where the distribution of folks tends to be in churches about my size. My congregant count is about 200 folks in the mid-Michigan marketplace. So that's great. I'm excited that we've got folks across the entire spectrum. And I'm hoping that for those of you that are part of very large churches, there's stuff here that you will still find of value. In a moment, we're going to take a look at the anatomy of a worship setup with Mac at the center of it. But before we do, let's review some common elements of this type of solution. Camera inputs, fixed or mobile, slideshow inputs typically from a Mac running Keynote or PowerPoint or Pro Presenter. Of course, your inputs from instruments, vocalists, pulpit microphones. And then, of course, we're looking to how we can make the best use of what we're producing. There's a lot of possibilities there for common outputs, and we're going to spend quite a bit of time today talking about how to make the best use of that. So a fundamental high-level overview of typical video production workflow looks something like this. We're not going to spend much time on storage or editing today. That won't be the this won't be the webinar for discussing Thunderbolt or Fiber Channel or SAS storage, or for helping you pick a nonlinear editing tool like Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere. But we are going to focus on the other areas you see here, with special attention on capture, manage, and share. Format conversion is accomplished in so many different ways, and in practice it can and does happen at almost all of the stages you see here. For now, just keep in mind that all three software tools we highlight today can help you transcode your media to other formats. Where you do that in your workflow across these boxes here and how you arrange them is up to you. The intent is to give you lots of options. For today, we're going to be leaving a brief discussion of conversion to the end of the pipeline with Axle and Telestream. So let's take a quick look at typical connectivity in a Mac-based solution. Of course, the heart of the solution for our presentation today is a modern Mac connected via Thunderbolt to one or more capture devices. What you're seeing in front of you is a single camera workflow, and it can represent a starting solution as you place a fixed camera, say, to capture the front of your sanctuary. In this sort of overview, the dotted line represents the break between what many ministries may already have on the right and what might be new from a hardware perspective on the left. You may or may not already have cameras, so that depends on the congregation. We're also showing a Mac Pro, but in a few minutes we'll discuss Mac choices. There are a lot of possibilities for the product that in this diagram is represented by the Ultra Studio. That's a product by Blackmagic Design, and we'll discuss that in a little bit more depth in a few minutes. But for now, it's important to keep in mind that in the Mac world, flexibility is really the watchword and a real advantage. There are so many ways to accomplish Mac-based rich media workflows. What we do, obviously, is to help people find the right fit for budget and for the extensibility of their equipment, the amount of inputs and outputs they have. So we're just looking at example workflows today, but there are lots of ways to leverage these tools and to leverage your existing investment in AV equipment. This is a two-camera workflow, looking much the same, except that we've added another Blackmagic Ultra Studio box to be a bridge between our second camera and the Mac. In this diagram, we have 3 Thunderbolt inputs coming to the Mac, so we're necessarily upgrading ourselves to the Mac Pro, which can support up to 6 Thunderbolt ports natively. Okay, another quick poll, if you'll indulge me. Let's take a quick look here. If you check out the webinar window, you'll see another poll. Let us know how you describe yourself. This will also give me a sense for, and the rest of the speakers here, of sort of where to aim our presentation today. We'll take a look at the results in a few minutes. That window will stay up, and I'm just going to keep charging ahead. So I promised to talk about the Apple Mac that sits at the heart of a Mac-based worship production solution. Most of you know the Apple line as including a great line of desktops and portables. We're highlighting the desktop today with the goal of showing you how you can integrate your Mac into your equipment racks, into your soundboard areas, into your mixing stations, or whatever you may have in your sanctuary. I'll also note that we're imagining the Mac in your sanctuary, but if you've got an editing room that you use, everything that we're discussing today applies. So from left to right, we move toward increasing power and capability, with the Mac Mini being a very capable starting platform, and the Mac Pro being the top of the line workhorse with dual GPUs and plenty of expansion capabilities. I'm going to ask our friends from Softron, Axle, and Telestream to remember to take a moment to talk about system requirements for their products, but suffice it to say, you can get into the game that we're working on today with a Mac Mini, and as your production grows in ambition and sophistication, the Mini can be placed in a great position as a slideshow Mac or in any number of other roles. So with placing gear in a broadcast or AV rack in mind, I wanted to show off a couple of options from one of our favorite manufacturers, Sonnet Technologies. Sonnet makes this great rack mount kit for the Mac Mini that can hold 1 or 2 units, routes the power button to the front of the rack, it routes USB to the front of the rack, and it really provides a nice way to secure the non-locking cables like Thunderbolt in the rear. Just takes up 1 U of space in your rack, so it's a great solution. And there's even one from Sonnet for the Mac Pro. There's always folks that chuckle a little bit when they look at the, that gorgeous black tower of the Mac Pro laying on its side like this. It gives you a different perspective, but they do make this unit, and you can house 1 or 2 Mac Pro devices side mounted in your rack. So Deborah Lee, could you put up the poll results from our second poll so we can see how we're looking on experience? So great, it looks like the majority of our folks have already got their feet wet and are doing production of some type or another, and a fair amount, actually the majority of folks have done quite a bit. So I think for the folks today that are helping do this presentation, that will help them steer their their comments on their products a little bit. So thanks for taking time to do that. So let's talk a bit about those products. So we're going to look at capture software and hardware first. If you remember that block diagram, we're at the front of the workflow for capture. And we're going to spotlight Softron Movie Recorder today. Movie Recorder is a great software solution, a Mac leading capture and record solution. It's got a number of great features that I want to spotlight. It's open and flexible and lets you do live ingest. It does edit while ingest, which a lot of customers really find appealing. That means you can be editing while the file is growing off your record. You can do simultaneous multi-source record, and that means you can do it scheduled or manual, and you can do those records to multiple destinations. Each of those destinations, by the way, can have custom naming schemes, custom video formats, so that you can be recording with multi-purposes in mind. Automatic file naming, support for closed captioning, detection of video formats, and if you end up getting into a very aggressive setup, you can actually stage multiple movie recorder Macs and then have a master Mac to control them all. But let me not talk about it anymore. I think the best way to get you a sense of what Movie Recorder can do is to pass control over to Michael Rosenau from Softron, and we're going to ask Michael to show you what's possible.
Thank you so much, Dean, and thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Michael Rosenau. I'm from the U.S. offices of Softron Media Services. It's a company that's headquartered in Brussels, Belgium, with 35 years of experience in developing professional broadcast software exclusively for the Mac. I'm here to showcase Movie Recorder, a professional-grade capture solution that's used by some of the biggest worldwide television networks, but is simple enough for your volunteers to just walk up and use. I'm going to show my screen here. All right, and this is Movie Recorder. This is an edit while ingest solution. But first, let's talk about capture. I'm here to talk about capture, and what this actually is the recording of your cameras or your satellite feeds, and it's basically turning them into a file on your computer. So this is Movie Recorder. It's an edit while ingest software solution. And that means that while it's being recorded, in the middle of the recording, your editors can still work on these files, and it increases your turnaround time significantly. And also, there's no memory card transfers from the cameras, and it saves a ton of time because some of these files get very big, and they can take upwards of 40 minutes to hours to download some of them. So making it instantly accessible to editors really increases the turnaround time. So this is Movie Recorder, and basically I have on the left here our sources, and this is my video card connected to the computer. And basically, to view the signals coming in, you just drag and drop them into the windows. And I have no idea why that feed is not working. So I'm going to work on this one here. And basically, you can control up to 16 channels of audio and highly flexible here. So let me go ahead and zoom in on this. And this is one of our feeds. And what we're doing here is we're viewing a live camera feed. It's a simulated, but it's a live camera feed. And right now, here's the destination. So to start recording, what we would basically do, we have a wide variety of codecs, and you can also set these to record to multiple places and in multiple formats simultaneously. Some people like to stream their software and need to have it in a certain format, and some people need to get a certain feed over to a cable or a channel that's going to rebroadcast their signal, and they need to get it in a certain format as well. So you'd be able to do all that simultaneously. So basically, to add a place to record, a destination, we're just going to add where we want it to go here. We just put a location, and you can, here's a custom naming. Sam from Axel is really going to go into detail and talk about the power of this. With what they have will really blow your mind. But basically, you can use these tokens here that will just make it very easy to name and auto-name based on whatever year, whatever month, whatever week it currently is, and it will automatically name everything. You can also work with metadata, and that's huge in cataloging your media, especially as you grow and do it more and more over the years. And we have a huge variety of codecs, so we're very flexible and very friendly to many, many formats. So basically, to start recording, it's as simple as pushing the record button, and we are recording. And at the same time that is recording, editors could be going to work on that for a very fast turnaround time. Also, if you know when a satellite feed is going to be climbing in, or you would like your cameras to start rolling at a certain time because your services are at a regular interval, you can add a scheduled. You can add a schedule here where we can make this automatically start recording at a specific time, date, or just weekly. And this is highly configurable as well. And you can also, again, record to multiple places at the same time. And you would do that here for this feed in the same way. We also have VTR control, and this is more for archiving older media, but it does support JPEG 2000, which is the official codec of the US Hall of Records. It's a lossless codec, and it is supported by a movie recorder. Also, movie recorder can be controlled remotely, and this is great if your cameras are in a control room, or sorry, if your computers are in a control room, or if you're spaced out across a giant church like the one shown here. And to do that here, I'm going to give myself a few more windows. And basically, this right here are other instances of movie recorder connected on the same network. And you can easily kind of go between and see what the other movie recorders are doing on your network and operate them as well and control them. Also, you can control remotely movie recorder from any web interface, including an Android tablet or an iPad or even your phone by logging into your movie recorder server, which is the movie recorder, and you just configure it ahead of time here. So you just select the source that you would like to use, and you can control this on your phone. So it just makes it very flexible, very easy to use. And it's you can do a couple channels here on something as simple as a Mac Mini, and with a Mac Pro you can do HHD channels on one Mac Pro with just one Thunderbolt cable. It's very easy to use, remote controllable, it's scheduled, and if you'd like any more information, please check out our website at softron.tv, or feel free to contact us over here as well, or contact Dean. So I'm going to pass the mic back to Dean. I'll take questions at the end. I'll go into more detail about anything. I'd be glad to. And I'm going to keep it moving here and give the microphone back to Dean. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael. And we're doing this very quickly, as you can see. Michael was moving around pretty fast. So if this has got your interest and you want a deeper dive and a little bit of a slower introduction to the product, then by all means, reach out and we'll arrange for a deeper presentation. I got to say, Michael, I love the video footage. I can't figure out why a great white shark and a bunch of fuzzy things on a desk, but I love it. So great. We're going to jump back into the presentation on my side. And we're going to move ahead with our discussion of capture hardware and software. So before we pass the mic off to our friends from Axle, let's talk a little bit about that hardware spot that you'll remember from the workflow diagram. We're spotlighting Blackmagic today, but the intent of what I've got in front of you now is just to let you know there are a lot of players in this space. The 4 companies we're showing here have deep roots on the Apple platform. They've been building Mac products for video capture for a long time. We are just picking one today to show you. Not showing any particular favorites, we just had to sort of give you a sense for what's possible in the marketplace. Blackmagic has a lot of products, but we're going to take a look at that Ultra Studio line that we introduced to you a few minutes ago. These products look very dense, very impressive, and very capable with all the various inputs and outputs for XLR, for component, and so on and so forth. But what's really important is to pay attention to the number of simultaneous inputs. Even that denser unit on the bottom, which is either the 4K or the 4K Extreme 3, only supports one simultaneous input of HDMI. So sizing for what you're doing in your workflow is important. The AJA IO 4K, which we're not showing here, does support more inputs and outputs too. And then just kind of a nod back to the folks from Softron. They've done something really interesting in the marketplace, working with the folks from Sonnet, who we looked at earlier, where they've taken a Thunderbolt expansion chassis and they've created the M44. There's actually a product called the M80 that's even more dense and capable of the M44, but The M44 is a 4-in, 4-out box that supports time slipping, and has even higher. There's even that higher density box if needed, but ultimately greater density than you see on those Blackmagic devices. Full ProRes support, and it comes with 4 licenses of movie recorder to give you potentially 4 record inputs. So a couple of fixed cameras and maybe a couple of mobile cameras for your sanctuary, and you're off to the races with something like the M44. And you can add mini converters along the way. So if you're concerned about the mix of maybe legacy analog or HDMI sources you've got, that's no problem. It's easy enough to convert and add mini converters, essentially inline devices, to bring everything into compliance for use in a product like the Blackmagic product or the M44. Michael, do you want to just speak quickly to the time slipping support?
Yeah, if people out there aren't familiar with time slipping, basically it's the practice of your service is being recorded. It's being worked on by the editors while it's being recorded. Let's say your service lasts 50 minutes and we're on the East Coast. So basically the service is being recorded for 50 minutes, the editors are working on it, and that last 10 minutes the editors kind of finish up and finalize everything, and then basically on the next hour, if the service was at 10 a.m. and the Eastern Standard Time, when you move to the next time zone, you essentially rebroadcast that same service at 10 o'clock the next time zone over. And that's time slipping. It's essentially keeping it at the same time, but moving it across different time zones. I hope that helps with anybody. Thank you, Dean.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Michael. So next we're going to look at working with content. We've now captured content. We've got it in our system. We've got some sort of storage, but just a whole collection of unstructured media in our storage environment, it is a challenging thing to keep track of. And so that's where Axle comes in, and their product, Axle 2016, is what we're going to look at next. So why media management? Well, this solves a number of problems for us. The Sam will get into it, helps you organize your content, search for your content. It helps you with metadata, which Michael alluded to, and Sam's also going to talk about what proxies are, why those are important, and how they help you.
Thanks
Sam.
much. Thanks, Dean. Appreciate it. Let's see, just gotta, here we go. I hope everybody can see my screen.
Looking good.
I just want to briefly introduce myself and also Graham, who's joining me here on the call. So I'm the CEO of Axle Video. We've been around since 2012, and we are delighted to be included in this webinar and be kind of on the team of really advanced but yet approachable solutions for houses of worship. I'm also joined by Graham Trail, who will be doing the demo today, and both of us are available for questions, obviously, after the webinar. Feel free to reach out to us by email or even just call. Our URL is www.axlevideo.com, but I'll repeat that at the end of the presentation as well.
Great, Sam. And we're not seeing your slides just yet, so take a moment and see if you can line that up.
Oh, I'm not sure why that's happening. Hang on a second here.
There we go.
Can you see it now? Okay.
Yep.
Great.
We're good.
Yeah, not sure why it didn't kick in before. All right, so appreciate that, Dean. That's very helpful. So there are our names and email addresses, and as you can tell from the tagline, what we're trying to do is make media management, as we say, radically simple, but really just bring it to the level where anybody can do it, particularly in a volunteer-based organization or with freelancers. Traditionally, that was not always the case. So what we've learned, particularly in working with houses of worship, but I would also say our university customers and some of our corporate customers have very similar constraints, is that we see that people are being asked to put out very high quality material on a limited or fixed budget. And they've got workflows coming from a bunch of different directions. Oftentimes there's a main recording or working format, but there may also be GoPro material and mobile device material being mixed in. There's a whole mix of formats, and yet at the end of the day, you're being asked to put out a really polished video. So the core problem that Axle was founded to solve is this one. And actually, Dean, we probably should have had a poll to say how many of you have a closet that looks like this. but it's generally the case that when we talk to customers, they're like, yeah, I got a shelf full of stuff that looks exactly like that. You know, some are smaller, some are bigger, some are messier, some are neater, but you know, footage just accumulates. And the problem is, of course, if it's just accumulating on loose hard drives, you have to remember where everything is. You have to reconnect and disconnect the drives. It becomes a real handful as the collection grows. And the material is not really usable, right? It's kind of there, but because of all the steps involved and the fact that only a few people know where things are, it's not really accessible. So in the past, the solutions to solve this kind of thing have been pretty much rocket science. I put this slide up to kind of illustrate the state of the art before Axle came along. And I had some personal experience with this because I was a product manager at Avid for something called Interplay, which is their big honkin' media management system. And a lot of large broadcasters use it, but it's safe to say it's really not appropriate for most houses of worship. The very largest, perhaps. But what do you do for people that need to get their job done, have a bunch of footage, and aren't really in the market, let's say, for these much more complex solutions? So what we've done is we've made it really radically simple. Everything in Axle can be accessed from standard browser interfaces. You don't have to install complicated Java clients. You don't have to reconfigure the way you think about your storage. And almost all of our customers go ahead and implement some kind of shared storage, right? So whether it's a network-attached storage device, which are really coming down in cost these days, or even a SAN, or direct attached storage hanging off of one or more Mac servers, no matter how you do it, a big part of this is consolidating the storage and getting it in a common place to work from. Once you've done that, though, Axle gives you this browser interface that you can bring up from a really wide range of devices: Macs, PCs, iPads, iPhones, even Android. So essentially, you can now find your material and make it accessible to a wider team. For instance, if you have parishioners and you want them to come in and select their highlights or tag material, you can do that. It's not all kind of captive to the 2 or 3 people that might be doing the editing work. And that ability to share the workload is a big motivating factor for systems like this, because it reduces your dependency on very overloaded, highly skilled people, and says, hey, let's put this out to a wider audience who can help us decide what the highlights should be, for instance. So what can you do with it? Examples are, first of all, just finding your media. As the first slide said, where's that clip? Just being able to find the material is critical. Also, sub-clipping and approving material is very important. The tagging, the ability to go in and put down not only comments, but also metadata tags in a structured way. And Graham will be showing you how that works. Review and approval, repurposing of clips that you may have captured earlier or that you may have had for a different purpose. And then, as I've mentioned, really getting the whole team involved in the workflow. So quite a range of processes that it can help. And how does it work? Well, as Dean mentioned before, a big part of this is generating the proxy media. So Axle is continuously scanning your file systems. It's capturing metadata from those media. It's also, when it spots a new file, making an H.264 proxy. And that proxy is then available to scan through in the browser interface, in the other interfaces of Axle at any time. We also allow you to create custom fields. So in addition to the simple timeline comments that you would expect, perhaps, you can have drop-down lists saying who was on stage or what kind of a service it was. You can have date fields. You can have large text boxes, so you can include a transcript or a script. And basically, all of this is running on a Mac backend. We do support some of the smaller Macs, but for the kind of heavier duty sites, especially if you're also running something like Softron Movie Recorder or some of the Telestream products, you're probably going to want to go for a Mac Pro. And those are available in 6-core, 8-core, and even 12-core configurations. So any of those can run Axle very competently, and it's probably worth a brief conversation with us about sizing once you're more sure of what the other pieces of software you'll be running on that machine will be. And the final point is that even though the Mac is the back end, as I've mentioned, we support front ends ranging from Mac and PC browsers like, of course, Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Internet Explorer, but also mobile interfaces. And I'll be talking a little bit more about this as we get into some of the extensions to Axle, because Axle started out as just a media management system, but we now have modules that can do things like, for instance, integrate with the Softron technology that you just saw, or integrate with user-generated content that people can be capturing on their phones. So some pretty slick stuff that you can do, but everything is designed to be really user-friendly and straightforward to implement.
Hey, Sam, this is Dean. A
Yes.
quick question. Could
Sure.
you just underscore for the folks that maybe aren't familiar with proxies what the importance of proxies are and how those help in a workflow?
Absolutely. So, the big thing that proxies bring you is that if you have terabytes of HD or even 4K footage, which is increasingly the norm, you cannot easily transport that around or quickly access it. You can open the file if you're sitting at Final Cut Pro 10 or Premiere or Avid. You can open those files, but you're going to have to be pretty technical to do it, and you have to open them and play them one at a time. What Axle lets you do, and you'll see this in the browser interface, is kind of get the high-level view, because you can touch on these clips, you can scrub through them easily, but you don't need to copy the whole file across the network. And that ability to essentially stream low-res versions of your material gives you all kinds of extra productivity because it essentially extends the team. Back when I was doing Interplay at Avid, the biggest win for a lot of even the largest broadcast customers was simply the fact that you could get this HD and 4K material out of the edit bays through the use of proxies and really democratize the access to it so that, for instance, the minister could look at the footage, or the community can look at the footage, and that viewability and shareability is a real big step forward for many sites.
And given that it's a web-based tool, Axle is available from outside of the church quite easily, right?
That's right. You can configure it to be either inside the firewall and very locked down, or you can have a mixed environment where it's both inside and outside the firewall. We even have some customers that have set up 2 servers. The software makes sense to have one for inside the firewall and one for sharing. So this is our panel for Adobe Premiere Pro on both Windows and Mac. We just launched it at NAB this year, and it's been getting rave reviews. The panel's in the upper left, and basically it lets you search the material off your Axle database, view the proxies, and then drag the high-res clips right into your timeline. So that capability where it's like almost 1 foot into your editor and the other foot connected to the storage is a very powerful tool. The other extensions to our product we've done in the last year are Axle Edit, which is actually an iPad, also points at the server. So Axle Edit connects up to the Axle copies on iPad. You can scrub, and here, because it is a native iOS app rather than just a browser interface, you get that really fluid feeling of playing something. But you can do pretty advanced audio fade in and out, as you can see in this particular clip, and string together both a storyboard mode and a timeline mode before saving it. When you save it, the really cool thing is that Axle Edit will render the HD or 4K footage back on the server. So essentially, you've mocked it up on your iPad. You can even disconnect from the network, jump on a plane, work on some stuff, reconnect, and then the server, it will render out what you've done in lower resolution on the iPad. And Axle Pulse is our latest addition to the product line. This is basically a user-generated content tool for the iPhone. What it lets you do is actually empower your viewers to go out and capture footage. You can easily imagine at a service, it would be cool to have more camera angles than you have cameras. So if you allow people to do that, especially things like weddings, it's a very exciting and empowering thing, and they can all be contributing footage to the final cuts that you pull together on a more technical basis afterwards. Finally, I just want to touch on the fact that we support LTO archiving, and there are some modules for that too. This is where you can have up to 6 terabytes on the latest LTO tapes. They are really fast and have a huge capacity. Plus, they're a lot more reliable than those loose drives on the shelf. One thing that a lot of people don't reckon with is that when you have, let's say, 30 drives, that every year 1 or 2 of those are going to go bad because they're just not designed to sit there on the shelf. And even if you power them up once in a while to try and keep them fresh, you can't escape kind of the laws of physics. So with these tape units, they're designed for basically 3rd tier, 2nd tier storage, where you just have either a shelf full of them or even an auto-loader device. And those are all getting a lot less expensive over time. It used to be that this was pretty high-end stuff, but nowadays it's very approachable. So finally, I just want to touch on some examples of our customers who are churches. We've had a great experience sort of rolling this out in the religious marketplace, both here and in Europe. We even have a couple in Asia, like Hillsong in Australia. So I think the sense that we have is that this market is really ripe for what we're offering, especially since people are just in the process of pulling their storage together in many cases from loose drives onto shared storage. And by the way, when you do that, when you go to shared storage, almost always you lose the ability to search in Spotlight, for instance. That's designed for local hard disks, but it generally does not work across a network. So just the basic fact of being able to find the clips, subclip them, and again, Graham will be showing a bunch of the features, but I think that's what makes it compelling to so many houses of worship. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Graham, and I just want to thank everybody as well for your time. It's really tremendous turnout, and we look forward to getting plenty of questions going forward.
Thanks, Sam. This is Graham from Axle Video, and I also want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us and see Axle in action, as well as all the other great products on display. So I have a quick demo lined up for you guys that will really highlight the marquee features of Axle, particularly tagging and hiding your files. But there's a lot more, so if you are curious, as Sam says, I definitely encourage you to reach out to us personally or visit our website, axlevideo.com, to learn more. So as Sam said, Axle is accessible through a web interface. You can see that here we're in Safari, nothing special, and I'm connected to our server here, so I can go ahead and log in with my user. Axle supports different user profiles that can have different permissions enabled. So pretty much anything you see me during the course of the demo, including editing metadata or like moving files around, you can turn those on and off for individual users through the user permissions. So that's something to keep in mind. So now that we're actually looking at the interface, you'll see that even though you've probably never seen it before, it's pretty familiar. We've designed the interface to be very intuitive. It uses the storage that you already have established on your, or it uses the folder structure that you've already established on your storage. So all the folder names you've created, that hierarchy that you've established, will be recreated in Axle. So when you log in, you'll see something very familiar. If I look at the left here, this is where I can see the different areas of Axle. And this line with the folder icon is my catalog, and that's the actual storage that Axle is recreating here. So if I go ahead and go into my under the sea footage, I have a lot of beautiful underwater videos here. I can see each of these files, and if I select one by clicking the checkbox here, this column on the right fills in with more information, especially this metadata. So when Axle indexes a file, when it scans your storage system and discovers the media that you have there, it automatically grabs a lot of metadata. and that's visible down here. So if I open the video folder, for example, then you can see a lot of information about that video, from things like the creation, when it was created, to the codec, to resolution. We have similar information for audio. All of that is pulled from the file and made accessible automatically. You can search for it, you can review it in this column here. So that's available right away. Now, Axel also gives you the ability to create your own custom metadata fields and then fill in the specific values for each file. So I've made a very simple scheme here that'll show that off. So you can see under the custom header at the top, I have my project, my location, a transcription, and a release date. So I have my Jellyfish Lake 1 selected here. If I push edit, each of these fields becomes ready for me to fill in. So Jellyfish Tide, can become something like Jellyfish Lake. The location is a drop-down menu, so I can choose which item from a pre-made list. So this is ideal if you have, either just options you want to select quickly, you can save time rewriting them every time, and it also helps, especially when you have like a team of volunteers or there's a lot of people, using a drop-down list like this can help people use the same vocabulary. So people don't end up describing the same thing in different ways. And that makes it a lot easier for you to find later. So whereas project is a text field that, as you can see, is quite small, so perfect for titles and labels and things like that, you might have a transcript, or it might be necessary to take lengthy notes or a description. That's why we have a large text field. So this transcription field, when I select it, you'll see it actually opens up. It's very large. I can go ahead and create multiple lines. And Axel remembers this formatting so that I can always come back and review it, and it'll be the formatting will be preserved to make it easy to read. But when I'm done and I hit finish, then we see that it's shrunk down for me so I can see it at a glance. But when I open it back up again, it's all nice and neat. I also have a date here, so just click it and it'll give you the option to choose a date from the calendar. Some metadata options not shown here are checkboxes where you can just check yes or no, and radio buttons, which are like the drop-down menus, where you predefine a list of options and then choose one. Those, though, you can see all of them simultaneously, so that's ideal for very short lists. So let's say I'm done with my metadata. I go and hit save. So that's locked in. So you might be thinking like, okay, that's very interesting, but each file, I have to select it and view the metadata to the side. Surely there's an easier way. And there is. So if I click the list view toggle, then I see my files as a list with columns of information. And these columns can be the metadata I've entered. So I can see my project column, my location column, my release date column. And if I come up here, I can add additional columns or edit the columns that are already visible. So that allows me to see the metadata values for each file right away. And I can select multiple files, including all the currently available files, and edit their metadata all in one move right here. So now that we've got some metadata with our files, we can use the search tool to find it for quick retrieval down the line. So let's say I realize I'm working on a project with my jellyfish, so I go ahead and type that in. So this is the basic search in Axel, and it'll return values for everything that can be searched. That's file names, metadata, comments inside the video. It's very broad. So we have an advanced search tool that allows you to snap together more sophisticated searches. So I can say, okay, project contains jellyfish. And maybe I specifically want this to be in a specific location like Green Rock. So now when I run that search, we can see that the project contains jellyfish and the location is Green Rock. I've really narrowed down my videos. So this is true of a folder that has a handful of videos, but it's also true of an entire storage system that might have hundreds of thousands or even over 1 million assets. Axel can use the search function to quickly drill down to find exactly what you want through its storage-wide search as well as its advanced search capabilities. So once you find the file you might be interested in, you can go ahead and click it. This takes you to our player view. As Sam said, we use proxies. So you'll be able to review your media without needing to worry about really weighing down the network with huge file sizes. It also means you don't need to worry about loading and buffering. And as an added benefit, If you ever lose connection to your main storage for whatever reason, the proxies will be there in Axle and you'll be able to access them. So if there's ever any kind of outage or anything like that, you can still review your media. So there's one feature I'd like to highlight here, and that's commenting. Commenting can be used as a kind of alternate metadata. You can simply navigate the cursor to whatever moment you'd like to highlight, come down to our comment here, and enter comment. So nice simple comment here. I hit post. Now that appears below the video here in a comment stream, where I can see a conversation with everyone who's left comments. But it also appears on the video itself with this white marker. If I hold the mouse over it, it'll appear on the video. And as I play the proxy, it'll also automatically display on the screen. So one more feature I'd like to highlight before passing the baton is our Softron integration. We saw the great demo of Movie Recorder earlier. So Axle has a feature that connects to your Softron footage intake and allows you to record from the Softron and automatically place it in a target location and then review that footage in Axle. So I've got two sources here on the Air Video 1 and on the Air Video 2, and I know it's probably coming through a little choppy on the GoToWebinar connection, so I apologize for that, but we've got two race car drivers here. So let's say I want to start recording footage from this. It's very easy. I just make sure that my destinations are where I want them to be down here, and hit start recording. And you'll see the big recording indicator is on the video. That means that Axle is recording the incoming footage from that location and putting it in the destination. Okay, hit stop recording. That's a good amount. So now I can navigate through my catalog, come to my Softron ingest location. This was in Cam 2. So I can come here to Cam 2, see all my footage. Here's the new one I just made. And as we speak, Axle is generating that proxy so that I'll be able to review it in the Axle browser. It's ready to add metadata right away, so I know all about the event. I can come in here and add that instantaneously, and it's ready to be searched. I can use some additional features such as downloading that media or sharing it, and that generates a link that I can distribute to a third party to view and review. So the integration with Softron really makes it easy to take that footage and get it right into your asset manager and start working with it right away. So as I said before, this was a very quick demo. There's a lot of features available in Axle, so if you have any questions, please get in touch with me or Sam, or visit our website, axlevideo.com.
Thanks, Graham. Actually, I just wanted to add one or two additional comments to give people some perspective on this. One of them is that all the time that Graham's been showing this, the files and the folder structures that you see are just the ones that are on the storage. Axle doesn't actually take control of those, so that you have the ability to keep working on your main file storage, and you don't have to kind of surrender control or do some kind of check-in, check-out process. It's all kind of automatic and in the background. And to that point, the other thing I wanted to mention is simply that Axle gives you the ability to bring in the proxies. So if you have a Mac Pro system, it can make those H.264 proxies while it's ingesting the high-res material, so that essentially the minute the clip is finished, so are the previews in Axle. Anyway, just wanted to thank everybody again, and we look forward to hearing from you. Dean, I think back over to you.
Thanks very much, Sam and Graham. Really appreciate it. Very quickly, I wanted to add a couple things that we think are really important about the Axle product. So you may be saying to yourself, B-roll, my house branding, my logos, my stock footage, Sam, Graham, I get it, but my Saturday, Sunday worship has a shelf life no longer than the day it was presented live. But if your house of worship is thinking deeply about how to keep your older or homebound congregants involved in services, then being able to make that production available to them is key. Once you've made a commitment to do that, recorded footage really takes on new value. Independent ministry clips presented, say, from the pulpit with searchable metadata tags that include scriptural references makes it possible for you to extend your ministry with more flexibility. And in our experience, there's been a lot of folks, your contemporaries, that have been interested in capturing special events like a holiday event, so that if you've got an all-volunteer team and they can't be present during the holidays, or you've got an unexpected outage of somebody who's key, you can rebroadcast an event to your home-based folks. You sort of surrender the live sophistication during the live event for the folks that actually came to your house of worship, but for your rebroadcast, you queue up something and play it out. And that's a great segue to where we're heading next, which is how to share that work. And so I'm really, really pleased to be able to finally turn the mic open to the folks from Telestream who are going to show you Wirecast. I think you'll be super excited about this product as well. The folks from Telestream really know this side of the business. That's why we turned to them to help us present and stream the event that we're doing today. And sort of the last 15 minutes or so, Andrew is going to show us the highlights of Wirecast 7. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Andrew Haley.
Thanks so much, Dean. I appreciate it, and we're happy to host today's event. This has been very exciting and a fun collaboration for us as well. We very much value the Mac platform as part of our solutions, and one of the things we like to do at Telestream is make sure that we have solutions that fit Mac workflows, particularly around live video and transcoding. So that's something that we value highly. And all of the partners and other presenters that you've seen today offer a different piece of the workflow puzzle. So that's been fun for us to watch as well. The piece that we like to bring to the table, or I'd like to show you today, is particularly around the live video and live broadcasting, as you mentioned. Now, the software that we are most known for in that area, particularly on the Mac, is Wirecast. Wirecast is a live broadcasting video switching and encoding software, and it is cross-platform, but many Mac users and ministries that use Mac find their way to this software when trying to share events live and across the globe. Now, what you're seeing here is just the basic interface of a Wirecast document. This can be, of course, adapted to whatever need you have and to bring in as many different types of sources that you might want. In fact, what you are seeing and the audience is watching right now when they see the slides and the screen switch is sources all brought in to Wirecast itself and then live streamed to the On24 webinar platform. So we are using Wirecast as we speak. So we like to put our faith in our own products and put our money where our mouth is. So one of the things that I just want to show you briefly, and we won't have time for a deep tour as the other presenters mentioned, but I can give you a quick overview here. So the way it works is this was built kind of from the ground up as a almost like a Photoshop-based layer system where you can bring in thumbnails or different types of sources, whether it's a live video camera or text or graphics. Everything would come in on these different sort of stacked layers like a cake down here. And then you choose what goes on screen at what time by choosing whether to select them and bring them on or take them off. Now, the window on the left here is just standard with most video switchers, is a preview window, and it's really only for the operator or the person using Wirecast. So you can set up shots and compositions ahead of time before they go live to your audience. On the right here is what's called the live broadcast area. This is the live window, and this is whatever your audience will see. And any frames or compositions that hit this window will get encoded and streamed. We can also record locally to a hard drive using this button, and this is our stream button. So, of course, you could always go live to tape. You don't have to broadcast. That's not a requirement. And you can keep everything or just keep a local copy as a backup while streaming at the same time. You can also stream to more than one destination, so if you have multiple outputs across the web you'd like to stream your presentation to or your live broadcast to, that's an option, or multiple hard drives you want to record on as well. So that's kind of the basics. Down here you'll see a couple buttons. This is just our transition panel, and that'll make sense in a moment, but this is just how you transition from one set of shots or media to another. We make it very convenient to use, two transitions, but you can of course adjust those to any of the ones that we have available in the software. And then this is our live, go, or take button, almost similar to the T bar you'd see on a lot of video switchers. So, and then up here is our, sort of our inspector, our properties tab, where you would adjust certain settings and add different sources and things like that. I think it's best if I just jump in and show you real quick how it works. So down here on my layer or shot list, I'm going to add a couple sources. I'm going to start with just a live video capture card. And this is one of the companies that Dean, you mentioned earlier, called a Magewell. And this is just a simple USB capture device. And it's bringing in a live camera feed, which you can see me now, right into my Mac. And Wirecast is picking it up through the UBC, or the Universal USB software drivers on the Mac, which bring in video and audio signals. So it's really easy to bring in a camera. If there were any adjustments to the frame rate or the size, I could do that up here. So for example, if I want to bring in 30 frames per second, all of that's done up here in my properties and settings. I can also set the different formats or resolutions that the card supports right here. But so far it looks great there. I'm going to bring in a second camera here as well. This is going to be my Logitech sort of simple webcam, which is mounted also here, so you get a much closer shot of my face. And just by clicking on the two thumbnails, and I'll bring up the size here a little bit, you could easily switch back and forth between the two cameras. And if that's all I was doing, I could then take that live to my audience and transition that. And then if I wanted to choose a smoother transition between the two, something like a fade, I could use the smooth button and then select that as my primary transition, or the one I'm using at the moment, hit the take button, and it'll fade between camera A, and then I can cut back and fade back to camera B. So it's really up to you how you use that, and it's very customizable. Everything, of course, can also be used with hotkeys on my Mac, so I could assign, say, a keyboard shortcut to the first shot just by right-clicking on it, and I could assign a keyboard shortcut to the second shot here. So then by simply using the keys on my keyboard, I can punch up whatever shot I want and then take it live. Okay, so very easy and efficient way to set up your shots that way. All right, if you want to get rid of everything and take it off the layer, you just select the blank layer, the clear shot on the far left of each layer. So we've cleared that out. Now let's jump up to layer 1 or 2 here, and let's throw in some graphics or some titles. So I'm going to start by adding a title shot here. We're going to use this plus button here. This is an easy way to quickly add all the different types of sources that Wirecast can support. You see there's a whole bunch more than I have time to go into here, but I'm going to pick an easy title here. We have some built-in graphics. We also, of course, do work with 3D animated titles and graphics, so you can get quite fancy with things. But a simple 2D graphic here will suffice. I'm going to pull that in from our title library, and that's just going to bring in this blue banner as a background with a couple text boxes. Now, of course, you could design these banners and things in your own Photoshop or image editing software, and then bring them in as a transparent layer, and then add your own titles or text on top of them. So there's lots of different ways to configure that. For my part, though, I'm just going to change this to click on the text box I want to change, and then in the properties I can simply change it to whatever title I want. And then each text box can be clicked on and adjusted accordingly. So that is, and then this last one I might just delete or take off entirely. So that's easy to do. We'll just remove it. Okay. Now, everything that is on the screen, I can pull up here, and you can see it's kind of over my face. It's a little large. So everything here in this shot can simply be selected together and moved around or adjusted in my preview window. And still my audience isn't seeing any of this. This is all for my benefit, or if I want to throw it up here in the corner, I can do that. So now when I have these two shots ready to go, you'll see they each have a green badge on them. Green corresponds to the preview window here, telling me that each of these have been punched up into the preview window, but they're not yet live. When we take them live, they fade in and their badges become red, so letting me know that they're currently active and live. And again, anything I do in the, well, almost anything I do in the preview window is going to be not reflected in the live window. So if I need to adjust size, or there was perhaps a typo or something in there, I could go back, adjust it, and then take it live again for my audience to see. So, and then what's nice about this multi-layer workflow is that I can, take titles or graphics or other elements on or off screen without affecting other layers in the stack. So if I want to take on or off the title, I can fade it on or off, and then I can fade it back on. And you can see that's how I can basically start switching and producing my feed live as we go. The last thing I might want to do is take out some green screen. I have this wonderful green screen behind me, but that's usually not the visual you want to put on screen. So Wirecast also allows for live chroma keying and fancy virtual effects like that. So I could easily put myself in a virtual environment just by clicking on the shot I want to take or apply the green screen or chroma key filter to. And now I've taken that out, I can jump over to the other shot as well, throw a chroma key on there, and Wirecast quickly calculates that, and of course there's adjustments for the thresholds and things like that, but for this right here it looks good. And then if I want to throw something behind me, very easy to do. I just jump down to a lower layer and add a photo or something like that. So if we want to bring in a media file or a clip, we could do that and throw that right behind me. It's going to pop up my desktop. I can run around and I could throw this movie file behind me or jump to my pictures and do, say, a Wirecast image or thing in the background. So I'm going to throw that on there. And now I can adjust it, move it around. Oh, hold on. Let me jump myself out of the picture, grab the photo I want, maybe resize it, go to my properties, just adjust the scale up a little bit, drag it down and center it, and then throw myself back on the screen, and then I can throw that into here. Now, what's great about Wirecast is the other thing is we're just doing the production side of things, but of course we have this whole other piece of the workflow puzzle, which is the output. So if we want to throw our output somewhere, we have a lot of different options. Wirecast allows everything from a local camera output. So if I had a capture card, like you mentioned Blackmagic or AJA, if I had one of those attached to this computer, they would show up on my output menu if they had available output channels. And I could push hardline HDMI or SDI video and audio out of those devices to overflow rooms in the church, or I could push them to a recorder or an external display wherever I want, or a splitter that feeds multiple displays throughout the church, or even in the sanctuary itself. So that's an option. You also, of course, have graphic card output. So I have external displays. If I have other monitors hooked into the graphics card of the computer, Wirecast senses that and can push your program mix out to that. And then finally, you have what's called a virtual output, which is great. This is useful for Skype calls, Google Hangouts, Zoom communications, webinars like this one. You can push the program of Wirecast, the whole composited mix, into a webcam application or something that uses a webcam, and then record it or push it into those live two-way back and forth for greater production value for things that use webcams typically. So a lot of organizations and individuals we work with constantly need that production value for those types of applications. So that's available for you as well. And then, of course, we talked about our recording and broadcasting. Let's look real quick at the output settings menu. This is where you select the actual recording or streaming destinations you want to stream to. And you can see we have a short list of ones we work with, but of course we work with a lot more than that, and you'll recognize a lot of these common destinations like YouTube or Facebook Live are very common, Ustream, Twitch, and so forth. There's many more. Many larger churches might use a big provider or CDN like Akamai or Azure Media Services from Microsoft or Verizon Digital Media Services. So all of those, if you have an account with any of those companies, it's as simple as entering your own user information. We, of course, work with church-specific providers, and those are from everybody from this is our longer list, and you just simply would check the destinations you want to appear. So if you were working with someone like a sermon.net or a churchstreaming.tv, you could select them, hit OK, and they would appear on your short list right here. So churchstreaming.tv is one of our partners we'll be working with or setting up shop at WFX coming up in just a few weeks here. So if you had an account with them, you would simply enter your username and authenticate and then select the size and resolution you want to stream to their servers in. So very easy to do. Once you've configured it, you hit OK, and the last step is you just start streaming whenever you're ready. And that is, in a nutshell, how Wirecast works. And of course, everything you do is live encoded on the fly. Dean, that's about it, unless you had something else you'd like me to show.
No, thanks, Andrew. I wonder if you could, I've got a quick slide on it that we can throw up if you pass control back to me, but I'll ask you to do the honors. But I didn't want to be remiss and forget Wirecast Desktop Presenter, which I think is relevant, and also Wirecast Cam. So if you want to just speak to those, I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So Wirecast, as I said, offers a wide variety in input types and sources, from live capture cards like I showed you and webcams to actual displays from other computers. So we have a remote application that allows you to bring in live video or live feed from another computer desktop on the network called Desktop Presenter. It's free to download, free to use. There's also a local screen grabber, screen capture tool built within Wirecast if you want to grab content from the computer that Wirecast is running on, and you get uncompressed, high-quality capture directly from the computer. That was built in there for gaming, for efficiency, but it's also fantastic for PowerPoints and slides that are running on the computer as well. And then we also have iOS device input. So if you have iPhones, iPods, iPads, and so forth, other Mac devices, you can bring in wireless, you can use their cameras, and many of them have wonderful cameras, high-resolution HD video cameras, and just by downloading our app called Wirecast Cam, again, free to download, and they will, you hit the stream button on the app, and it will stream wirelessly over the Wi-Fi network in the church, and Wirecast can pick up the HD video signal that way. So it's a great way to get other devices, mobile devices, cut the cord, and get around the premises anywhere you have Wi-Fi signal to get alternative points of view and camera angles, or to get content that you otherwise couldn't get because you'd have to drag cameras and cables out there. So we've had churches use that for everything from baptisms to close-ups of marriage ceremonies and things like that, where they just couldn't get a camera, but they could get a little iPod or iPhone much more discreetly and get a better angle. So lots of different options. Again, it's a very versatile software.
We love the idea of the baptism cam. We have a lot of fun talking to our customers about that. Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it very much.
My pleasure.
Very quickly, we're going to take another look at another desktop product from Telestream. We're just going to spend a minute on this, but I think it's worth a mention as a companion product to Telestream. To Wirecast, excuse me. Telestream makes a product called Switch that comes in a couple of different configurations, Plus and Pro. For those of us that are engaged in making productions, we export our final product in some sort of format that we're working with, and then perhaps before we purpose that to an internet destination, we want to review it. And for a long time, the de facto tool for that has been QuickTime Player, which has served us all very well, but it's intended to be a very lightweight tool. Switch gives us a lot of extra power to review our video to make sure that it is perfect before it goes out. The ability to inspect captions, subtitling, make sure that we've got error-free playback going on, the ability to make some last-minute trim and scale and crop arrangements to it without having to go back into our editors and nonlinear editing tools and reconform and re-export and so on. It's inexpensive and it's worth a look, so we thought we'd just give you a quick peek at that. And then I also just wanted to mention, Andrew, that I think it's worth just kind of pointing out that where you were speaking to with Wirecast is the live switching kind of paradigm versus a recording and editing and then uploading of that media to an internet destination. The tools that we've showed here all work very well together, but if you embrace the live production model, one advantage is that you save yourself most of the editing and post-production work, and you get to your users, to your participants and congregants that much faster. It's a bit of a jump. If you're doing editing now in a traditional way using a nonlinear editor, and you're thinking about, well, that looked very compelling, maybe doing a live camera switch and a live production using Wirecast, but it sure seems complicated. It's simpler than it will appear, and you can do a simultaneous record as well as a simultaneous upload of that feed, and it saves you and your volunteer team, or often volunteer team, a lot of that post-production work. Okay, we promised at the top of our presentation, and we've just got a couple minutes left to talk about digital signage. And happily, we've got a great solution with that with the 4th generation Apple TV. The 4th gen Apple TV is a great platform. It runs a cutting edge version of the iOS, the operating system that we've all come to love on our iPhones and iPads. But as a result, it can now run apps, which means we have lots of potential. And there is a free media player app available on the App Store called Show and Tell. It's a video sign player. It's got a straightforward interface. So imagine in your lobbies and narthex and welcome spaces a TV that can be in multiple orientations, portrait or landscape, with a 4th gen Apple TV nested behind it, showing streams of videos and stills from a playlist that you set up. The app can be configured in a very simple way to just read from a destination like Dropbox. You can schedule it for different start and stop times for different clips. You can set up looping, and it's free, so it's great. Just take a quick look at it, and if you've got Apple TVs, 4th gen Apple TVs, and you're thinking about how we can do new and interesting things with it, that's a great it's a great tool to look at. And that brings us to the end of our presentation. We do have a number of great questions that have been queuing up over the last hour or so, so I thought I would kind of MC that on behalf of the group here and see if we can get those answered. I'll take a couple of these myself, and then I'll ask my colleagues to help out. So Deborah's asked, why are we using a Blackmagic product? Why do we need that for input? Isn't HDMI to Thunderbolt input an option? And Deborah, that's absolutely the case. You can take HDMI directly in over a Thunderbolt adapter, but what that doesn't give us is the ability to bring in all of those other inputs from, say, your analog soundboard, and then make sure that we've got audio sync with the video going on. So if you're recording audio and video from a camera that's close to the presentation area or the pulpit, and you're also bringing in audio over an analog microphone, you want to make sure that when you're doing that mix, everything is in sync, and that's what that sort of capture hardware can do for you. But if you think about the way we were talking with these remote camera applications and remote desktop capture applications that Wirecast has, you can actually put together a presentation without the need for a lot of wired interconnectivity and get a lot done, really. So there's so many different ways to come at this with a relatively lightweight hardware footprint or an increasing degree of sophistication. Let's see. This one's for Michael. So Michael, you'll want to unmute. Has the M80 ever been used for multi-time zone webcasting?
Multi-time zone webcasting. You know what? That's an interesting question. I can see that it would work just fine. However, I don't know of anybody currently doing that. That'd be a really creative. Maybe they haven't shared that with us, or that this whoever's asking that question is a pretty creative fellow. But it would work just fine, especially when plugged into to the streaming software. It should work just fine. It would really, the M80 is an ingest solution, so you're essentially capturing. There's really no play out there. Is that the question? I think that is that the question that did I get the question?
Yeah,
right?
I think so. They're looking for use in playback, so it's good to highlight it as a capture only solution.
Yeah, the M44, and we also have an M62. And then we have an M8R, which is essentially an 8-lane card where any of the connectors can be used simultaneously as either an input or output.
Great, thanks, Michael. This one's for
Sure
Sam
thing.
and Graham from Miguel. He says, I've heard about media asset management and production asset management. What's the difference between them?
Yeah, happy to answer that one. Traditionally, the difference has been that media asset management has been oriented more towards archives. So basically fixed collections of assets that don't change that much. And production asset management has been more towards work in progress and stuff that's changing. Those distinctions are blurring more and more, especially with our products. We have a lot of customers using Axle for more of a media asset management workflow. but we also have a ton that are using it in production asset management, similar to what we showed with the Softron ingest, for instance. And I'd say that, like I say, that's increasingly being blurred over time as the systems get more capable and easier to use.
Great, thanks, Sam. And I'll just take a moment and note that we're about a minute past our planned presentation time, but for those of you folks that want to stay on for Q&A, we'll do this for about another 10 minutes. Another question for you, Sam. Can we use ODA instead of LTO? And that's from Miguel.
So the answer is yes. You can pretty much use any storage system that can be mounted as a file system. In the case of ODA, we do have to work through device drivers as much as we do through LTO, so probably best to talk to us about the integration options there, but it does work.
Okay, great. Andrew, we've got a question that says, I only want to use Wirecast for video mixing and use external encoders for streaming. Which Mac Mini version will suit me?
Which Mac Mini version will suit you? So Mac Minis do tend to chug a little when it comes to live video encoding. I have a Mac Mini here for my demo machine, and I find that it doesn't take too much to get it working pretty hard. So I recommend, if you absolutely need to get a Mac Mini, get the most powerful one that you can. But ideally, what you really want is a quad-core machine, or at least a machine that has built-in hardware acceleration as far as graphics. So if it has a quick sync chip or something like that. So again, I hesitate to recommend Mac Minis for live video production. It is possible that it can be done, but just be aware that it doesn't take too much to overwhelm them pretty quickly. Better to deal with maybe an iMac or one of the more powerful iMacs, or a Mac Pro even, if you are doing multiple cameras.
Great, thanks, Andrew. And Sam, the Mini has been a staple of Axle video workflow, especially at the entry level, for a long time. Is that right?
It has, but I would tend to concur. Like these days, we're really recommending iMacs and Mac Pros. It remains to be seen if Apple will be reintroducing a quad-core option on the Mac Mini at some point, and if they did, that would be a great machine. Right now, the biggest Mac Mini you can get is dual-core, so we tend to gravitate towards quad-core on higher machines.
Gotcha. Great. Tim, if you're able to take a question, there was actually a question about what the current state of the product line is on the Mac Pro. Are you able to dive into that with us at all?
Yeah, there's really nothing out there right now that I have any information on. Apple will refresh as they go, but I don't have any sort of timeline or anything like that on it.
Okay. And its current configuration has been in place for a while. And can you outline kind of the options for the customers? I think that's the nature of the question. So options.
I'm sorry, say that again?
So what are options available on the Mac Pro platform, or are they better suited kind of going to the store and kind of playing with the configurator?
Oh, absolutely. Log on to apple.com and then go to the Mac Pro section, and you can actually see all the different configurations there, from the different cores to the graphics, whatever you need. That's a much better place to be able to play and explore.
Great. Andrew, Ricardo's asking, what are the caveats in using Wirecast Cam? Are there a maximum number of iOS devices, network requirements, workflow, reliability?
Yes. As with all Wi-Fi devices, you do need to proceed with caution and a lot of testing. The Wirecast Cam is currently designed for low latency using a UDP packet structure, so there's no verification as to whether packets made it over the network to Wirecast or not, or were dropped. And if we switch over to a TCP model where there's verification, then ring and lag and that sort of thing, but it will increase. This have choice as to which way to go with it. At this time, we chose latency over accuracy. So in that sense, you want to minimize as many links in the chain as possible, and just try to hardwire your Mac right into the router, and then have the only Wi-Fi piece of the puzzle be the actual video stream from the app over the Wi-Fi network. Of course, you want to have strong signal wherever you go, pretty good line of sight or video transmission capabilities, and then you want a network that's not subject to interference or other throttling or usage. And if you do all that, then you can, we haven't really tested an upper limit. It's going to come down to your network, the number of devices you can get on there, and then your computer's ability to keep up with the decoding and the displaying of frames. So, you know, tentatively anywhere from 1 to 4 is probably realistic, but that will depend heavily on each individual's network.
There are churches that have moved to wireless AV solutions in addition to what we've been talking about here, and in those cases churches deploy separate access points with essentially a production Wi-Fi environment that's tuned for that, and they keep their guest traffic and front office traffic off of that network.
Right.
We've got a question from Mark. What's a recommendation to use for displaying song lyrics? Great question, Mark. You'll see this with Keynote, certainly PowerPoint. One of the great tools that's very popular that I'd point you at is something called Pro Presenter. So do an internet search for that and check it out. It's very capable and designed specifically for what you're asking about. And it can be treated just like we've talked about in terms of your screen, your slide presentation Mac, running on a Mac. We can capture that stream as part of the production. Okay, another one for Telestream. Will Telestream support the live stream Mevo camera? I'd love to use Wirecast with my Mevo units on a Mac.
That's a good question. I have no information. We don't have a Mevo that we've started testing with yet, but that has come up before, so I think we'll be looking into it.
Great. Another one for Wirecast. On Wirecast, is there a way to stream to separate subnets at the same time? We wanted to set up a backup stream if one internet. That's a great question.
Yeah. This is a good question, and I would say that on the Mac, it can be key to telling the operating system rather than the operating system at the kernel level or whatever to choose which outgoing you are sending packets through from the app. There's no way in app to determine that. You might be able to do something in the terminal or on the lower level to do that, but I'm not sure if that's possible. Ad hoc testing with it, but nothing I can say conclusively. Your probably most reliable or easiest way to do that is to set up a second streaming computer on a separate network that your AV signal send and capture to both, and then each can have the same signal on 2 different networks.
Okay, that's great. We are coming to the promised 10-minute expansion of our Q&A section. For those of you live, we are going to answer all questions and get those answers back to consider, and we appreciate very much everyone's time. This is a longer than average some things that are interesting and useful to you, and we thank you very much for your time. You'll see in your note that we've got some follow-up contact information for Macprofessionals, Softron, and keep in mind that we'll be producing and making available the results of this streamed event in a couple of days. One other area that is shockingly similar to the email that you see there for Macprofessionals, but if you truncate that email address to macministry@macprofessionals.com and send any follow-up questions to that address, that will automatically route everybody that was on this call. So Axel and Wirecast. So Mac is a mailing list that will get to all of us, and we'll follow up with questions there as well. Thank you, everyone. everyone, and thanks again to our friends from Telestream, Axle, and Softron for helping to make this possible. And thank you especially to Tim Kenham for coming up with the concept of a Mac in the presentation. We think this was, hope you do too.